Meeting to order. Will you join me with the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Welcome to the Monday, March 23rd, 2026 meeting of the Westport Select Board. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, this meeting is being recorded. I want to start with kind of sad news. We want to acknowledge the passing of Russell Hart. Russell passed away at the age of 97 years old on March 19. He was born in Fall River, but he was a lifelong resident of Westport and a graduate of Westport High School. He's a veteran of the United States Air Force, where he served his country during the Korean War. He had many roles. So he was an insurance agent for a number of years, but he owned and operated R.T. Hart Lobster Company, along with many commercial lobster boats from 1955 to 2000. Many will remember his service to Westport as he held many roles. He was on the Board of Assessors from 1958 to 71, the Board of Selectmen from 68 to 71. He was a highway surveyor from 71 to 90. He was the Fish Commissioner from 1990 to 2000, and he was on the Board of Selectmen again from 2001 to 2004. Until his passing, he was also a member of the American Legion, the Nokachoke Masonic Lodge, the Lions Club, and the Westport Historical Society. I'm reading from his obituary. It said he was known as a town trivia buff. He was a champion of all things Westport, with a particular place in his heart for Westport Point. The family enjoys the fact that he was a town politician and never lost an election. So we just want to celebrate the very rich and full life of Russell Hart and send condolences and sympathy to his family. Anybody want to say? I didn't know Russ.
I've met him at veterans events, and he's all what you said. He's a great guy, just a great guy.
Seems like we're losing more and more of the old Westport. So on to other news. We want to have a couple of announcements. We have a Household Hazardous Waste Day is coming up this week, actually, on March 28, from 9 to 12 at the old high school. You do have to register in advance, so please go to the Westport, the town website. You can go, there's a link there for registration for the household hazardous waste. I myself, having traveled all the way to Sutton to dispose of a bunch of waste, I just want to encourage people to take advantage of that because it doesn't come down here very often. So that's March 28. Check out the town website to register in advance. Also wanted to mention there is a Ask the Candidates event happening on Saturday, March 28 from 12 to 2. That's an open event to meet all the candidates and ask questions. So it's at the new high school. So the Ask the Candidate event Saturday, March 28, 12 to 2 at the new high school. And just a reminder that the town election, for which these candidates are running, the town election is on Tuesday, April 14. So there's a number of contested races. We sometimes don't have very many contested races, but we have a number of contested races this time. So check out the town website, check out the candidate event. I know the community television will be putting out videos of all the candidates so that you can get to know who they are. That was all I had in the way of announcements. Have I missed anything that I should cover? Our next meeting is in 2 weeks on April 6th.
Oh,
Is it April 6th?
you're right. Yep, April 6th. Yep.
Our next meeting is a regularly scheduled meeting on Monday, April 6th. All right, so first on our agenda, we have several public hearings. The first one we have is a request from NStar Electric Company, doing business as Eversource Energy, to install 8 new manholes, 6 by 10 by 8. 1 new manhole, 13 by 13 by 8, and approximately 4,810 feet of conduit in the right-of-way of Hicksbridge Road. Welcome. Can you introduce yourself?
I sure can. Good evening, members of the board. Jessica Elder, representing Eversource. Thank you for having me this evening.
So can you tell us what you got going on?
Absolutely. Let's see. So this petition is a request for it's a continuation from a previous
I think that this was a storm cancellation.
Yes, so
Yeah.
we actually were supposed to have this with the hearing prior to, but it never got submitted. And then we had it scheduled for the date of the storm, and it got canceled, so we're continuing now. So it's 4,800 feet of conduit and 8 manholes. It's going all along Hicksbridge Road. And let's see, it's going down by Drift Road as well, so we're extending all along Hicksbridge Road down the Drift Road, so we're going to cover several areas, all in the right-of-way. Let's see, the purpose of the project is, continuing improving system reliability to provide additional capacity, support long-term infrastructure needs in the area. All work is proposed within the public right-of-way has been designed to follow the existing roadway layout, so we're not going to go outside of the roadway layout as closely as possible, minimizing impact to any abutting properties and any existing utilities. The work, as far as time, I'm not really sure. I mean, it's a lot of work going along the way. There shouldn't be any disruption, and if so, if there's any disruption to any of the areas, they will let any of the abutters or any of the businesses know. And then they'll be restored appropriately. I do want to note that this installation is, for general electric system infrastructure, is not specific to any particular distributed energy services, but while the system is designed for everyone, including residential, commercial, municipal facilities such as police and fire, any future interconnections would be reviewed separately in, throughout Eversource's standards procedures.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone from the board have any questions or comments?
I was just wondering the length of the duration of the project.
They didn't, I'd imagine it's going to take quite some time. 4,800 feet of conduit and 8 manholes will take, I would say, it will take some time. Maybe what I can do is find out a more specific time than kind of putting it out there and saying a couple of weeks. I think it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
You got traffic concerns and things like that that you got to be worried about, and weather permitting, that will possibly stop. We're out of the winter so much right now, hopefully.
Maybe.
But you just never know. You just never know.
Okay,
But we're looking to start as soon as possible.
yeah. Thank you.
Madam Chair, just a couple of quick questions. Jessica, thanks for coming back. I'm not going to hammer you like I have in the past on this, but
Thank you.
I think to Dick's point, the major concern from Westport is that thoroughfare, Hicksbridge, has 2 large economic drivers on it, and if we get into the summertime where people can't get to the winery or Buzzards Bay Brewery, that's going to be a problem. So I just stress that, and I know we did some work to try to get the process moving even sooner because you guys are already down there.
Right.
So again, I just continue to stress that we don't want to continue to hear if we're in June, May timeframe where we're not, where we're blocking off Hicksbridge and access to those businesses. The other thing I think is for Chris, because I've heard some things like notification to residents about kind of the traffic patterns.
Yep.
Maybe we can post that or at least put that out there so they're well aware. I think we have, but I think maybe directing people to where to find that.
Yeah, so I think as a condition of approval, just that, Eversource and Verizon works in coordination with our public safety department on traffic control and traffic planning, we'll definitely get outreach out there.
And that would probably be good to put on our new Facebook page anyway, the town Facebook for a project like that. Again, I will be voting against it because I understand, in my opinion, I think this is going to be used for other projects that I may not be fully supportive of. But obviously you'll be fine here, but you know where I stand on that, Jessica. So
I do.
I'm not going to hit you on that again tonight.
I do, Jay.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that has comment on this one? You can just come up to the mic right here and state your name.
Good evening, Sue Burns, 395 Hicksbridge. As far as how long it's going to take, the butters got a letter saying April 2026 to April 2027 in the letter.
Okay.
Well, wait a second. Second.
That's like a year, right?
Okay, just throwing that out there. If the residents got a letter with traffic patterns, I did not receive one on Hicks Bridge, because one of my questions why coming here tonight is to ensure that the road would be opened at all times, that we would not take a 13-mile detour down by the beach. Is that going to be assured?
I'm sure that they're going to have detail out there to direct the traffic and not
Well, is
cause
there-
any, they're probably doing sections at a time.
Right, but to her point, there's not a good, it's a pretty long stretch if you're going to have to detour around.
Right.
So we want to make sure that we're keeping at least
One
one
lane.
lane.
Oh, yeah, they're not going to close.
Well, I mean, I know they did that in the harbor, right? When they put telephone poles there, a friend of mine had to add 10, 15 minutes to every trip out of the house because she was detoured. So that's why I just want to make sure you've got assurances here that that's not going to happen, and we have a recourse if it does.
Yeah, I think it's important to keep the roadway open.
Additional point, the existing manhole covers from Route 88 to Drift Road, I'm not sure who's responsible for them, but they're always a mess. They're constantly patched. You hit them, it's jarring. If you go around them, you're over the yellow line. Every time there's any kind of road race, we have multiple bike and foot road races that go in that down that road. So when this is going on, they can't be leaving structures up on the weekends. When you approve those races, you might want to make sure, because I know they're approved every year, that the road is fully open for it. But I know especially with the bike races, they put a lot of caution around the existing manholes because of the danger if a very expensive, very thin, very lightweight bike hits that. So I just don't feel confident about manholes. And even a pothole, all those houses on Hicks Bridge are pretty close, not all, but most are very close to the road. If a truck or even a big car hits a pothole, I hear it. I have a door in my 100-year-old house that opens every time a truck goes by and hits a pothole. So, quaint, cute, but, I just want assurances that the road will be put back. Is the road on any plan to be resurfaced in the next few years? Can anyone address that?
Do you have any information?
So I don't have information on the time frame. However, I know that as part of a condition of the condition of approval, if the board went that direction, all work would be subject to the Highway Department's standards. So if there was a moratorium or if there were road conditions that, we want to make sure it's done in line with
No,
our
because
expectations.
there was some road cut that was done on Pine Hill recently, going across the road, that's a speed table now. It's a real severe clunk to go over. So I don't know what our recourse is when patching like that is terrible. So I just want to put it out there. I'm not against the project, I just want it done right. So as far as us knowing about if the road stays open, about any detours, about road races and marathon, half marathon goes by on that 13-mile loop, and then how it looks afterwards would be important for us. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Are there other comments?
Hi, Philip Mackenborough, 458 Hicks Bridge. First question is, these underground lines, what are they carrying?
Jessica, can you answer that? It's electric cabling.
It's, electric conduit cable. Yeah, conduit cable.
Yeah, but is it high-tension wires or high voltage or?
That I can find out, that I'm not,
Because I have a little bit of an issue where 20 years ago, the town had redone the catch basin by Pine Hill Convenience, and flooding on the north side of the road got considerably worse after that. So I get concerned that more digging is going to disrupt that more. And also, if that is high-tension wires, is that going to be another reason we can never get this problem solved?
that I couldn't answer. I can have someone else, I can pass that information on to our.
Yeah, because low-voltage wires is a whole different story than those 40,000-volt
Right,
things.
right. Yeah, I'd have to get back to my engineering crew to get that.
Yeah, all the plans and everything that we have are talking about the manholes themselves and then the conduit. So it talks about how big the conduit is, but not so much what's
Nothing on
going
the-
in it.
They don't usually give me that information. I don't usually get the wires and
You know, I said,
The amount of
my
condos.
concern is going to have something, it might affect the pipes that we have, and then our flooding will get even worse.
So I can take your contact information, and we can connect with you after this meeting, get you an answer to that question.
Okay, appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else?
One more from me. So it's a little disconcerting that we're now talking about a one-year time frame with respect to this project, April 26th to 27. So Chris, can we, and Jessica, I know you don't have that information, so can we reach out to the project manager on this and figure out what their scenario and time frame is for construction during the summer months, specifically from basically a Memorial Day to a Labor Day, when our basically traffic in town increases by 5,000 to 10,000 residents? Again, that's what I've harped on all along, and I just, again, giving the blanket approval for this, we lose a little bit of control because they're a larger utility company that has an engineering firm, and they're going to go about the project. I'm very concerned about that, and we've already heard from a couple residents this evening, and I'm guessing it will get a heck of a lot worse if we have these problems
Yeah.
with increased traffic in the summer.
So, for the board's consideration, as part of this approval, we also can set some additional conditions on that. As an example, notification to the highway department. I know we talked about maintaining access for vehicles, for residents, emergency vehicles, businesses. We can ask that they provide us a project timeframe as well as traffic control plans, which I expect our police department would need anyways if they're offering assistance there. The other thing, just with regards to roadway conditions, during the project and when it's done, we can ask, that they be responsible for settling and repairs after a set amount of time. So, if we get through, at a period of time and we see some settlement or the roadways aren't what they need to be, we can make that a condition of approval here this evening.
And, Madam Chair, sorry. There are some races that are held during the summertime, fundraisers for Buzzards Bay Coalition and other organizations. So if that road is torn up, or we have, like the woman stated with respect to the manhole covers, or even just, slices into that roadway, that's going to cause problems for more than, I think it's probably 2, 3, or 4 different races or fundraisers, half marathons that go on during that time frame. So,
Yeah.
and that use that exact path from Drift Road, Hicks Bridge to Horseneck. So, again, I'd rather address it now and have a plan in place than get to the middle of the summer and everyone's scrambling to do something. So,
Chris, were you writing down? Can you just summarize the conditions that you were suggesting?
Of course. So first one is that the road work and restoration be done in line with the highway department standards, that settling repairs, that they would be responsible for a period of 2 years after the road work has been completed, notifying the highway department before starting any work, at least 48 hours in advance, conditional approval that any work allows access to be maintained for emergency vehicles, residents, and businesses in that area, and that they provide a overall project timeframe and traffic control information so that we can share that out.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Yeah, you can go to them.
My neighbor reminded me, some very large farm equipment goes down that road and needs more than one lane's width. So they need to keep that in mind. There's a lot of tractors and stuff that have to go over the yellow line just to get by sometimes.
Thank you. So maintain access to that would be maintaining access for businesses, I think, and residents.
Yes, and I would say just, as those details get finalized, I would work with our police department, obviously, in terms of, what type of access they would need for that to adequately and safely pass that area, so.
Okay. So what's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair, I'd recommend that we do not take action on this tonight. We get that information that's being outlined here and have a different presentation, or an additional presentation, particularly in specific to all of those questions. And that would be, then I would be prepared to vote on it.
So are you moving to continue the public hearing?
Yes,
To the next meeting.
the next meeting.
All
I
right.
second that.
All right, so so the motion is to continue the public hearing, so not make a decision tonight, continue the public hearing. Can we do it in the next meeting, or does it have to be the meeting after that?
I believe we should be able to do it on the 6th, yeah.
Because we have the posting requirements, right?
One more
Yeah.
question. Is this an extension, because they're already doing work in that Hicksbridge roadway, is this contingent upon that? Is this a further extension of that? Or, because they're currently there right now, I believe.
Correct.
So that's not going to slow down any progress of what they're currently doing with this, right?
I don't believe so, but I will confirm. So if you want to tentatively set that to the April 6th, again, worst case, if you want to say, or the 27th, we'll make sure that we have our ducks in a row for this next hearing, this next meeting date.
Okay, all right, so we have a motion and a second to continue the public hearing, ask the applicant to come back with that information, and then we'll post for the 6th. All right, any other discussion?
One more discussion point, and no offense, Jessica, but would there be a project, could we maybe get a project manager and someone from the engineering firm that could lay out the specifics? And again,
No,
no
I
offense to you,
totally-
I know you're sent as a mercenary here.
Totally understand. I
You get
mean,
hammered, but-
many times I said. they
Well,
should
and we know,
bring
and we
an
know
engineer.
timelines can flex, right, because it's a
Yeah.
weather thing, but you should have, we would like some idea of
Yeah.
how long it's gonna take.
So if that's possible, Chris,
Yep.
see if we can reach out to them. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay,
Well, probably Anthony
Yeah.
would probably come with me.
all right, so we're gonna vote on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's 4 in favor, 1 absent. Hey, thank you. I guess you're coming back.
Thank you so much. See you soon.
The next item we have is a request to approve the layout of Stacy Lane as shown in the definitive subdivision plan entitled Stacy Lane off Fisher Road, prepared for Ronald Oliveira, dated November 23rd, 2020, recorded in the Bristol County Registry of Deeds, Book 183, page 47. Welcome, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, good evening, members of the Westport Select Board, residents at home watching, and residents here before me. My name is Nicholas Gomes. I'm an attorney with an address of 13 Center Street, New Bedford. I represent the owner, Mr. Ronald Oliveira, who put the Stacy Lane subdivision in. If it's okay, I can go forward with a brief presentation.
Yep, please do.
So Stacy Lane is about a 1,000-foot roadway. It is located on off of Fisher Road. It's about 1.5 miles south of the old county road. There are 6 houses in this subdivision. We are simply seeking to have this roadway put before town meeting vote to be formally accepted as a public road. We believe that this is a appropriate move going forward to bring consistency to the town, to allow these 6 inhabitants who are proud Westport residents the opportunity to have their roadway accepted. It's got this little curve to it and a simple cul-de-sac at the end. Here, this was built to the specifications and went through the proper permitting to allow it to be built. It's fully built out, fully paved, and it has all of the looks of any other type of public roadway here in town. We would be requesting that it be done to provide consistency, to allow the town to manage emergency access at all times, and it would have the secondary effect of continuing to continue a strong value of households in your town. And I think that some people, sometimes I've noticed, are hesitant and might say this is increased maintenance for DPW, this is increased costs over time. But I say that that is a short-sighted way of looking at it, because the opportunity presented is going to build that consistency, and what's good for one resident in the town of Westport should be good for all residents here in the town. And that's why I'm before you asking that you consider supporting this project. And I would intend on, if it so moves forward, to go forward and speak to the residents and make myself available to answer questions. I'm easily found on the internet, on Nicholas Gomes, newbedfordattorney.com, if you wanted to ask me any questions if you're in the audience and aren't here. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So in our package that we got information on, we have input from the town planner, who has said that SW Cole signed off on the construction and doesn't have any concerns. The highway surveyor didn't have any concerns about the quality of the road, but obviously is concerned about the number of miles that are getting added to the town. But the Westport Conservation Agent has sent a note saying that, now this is February 3rd, so that, I don't know if this has been resolved since then, but the letter we have from the conservation agent is that there's an outstanding order of conditions that has not been closed out for the construction. It says the portion of the work was within the commission's jurisdiction and requires sign-off from the conservation agent. They need to request a certificate of compliance be issued. And so he's recommending that we don't sign off until the certificate of compliance. So has that been issued?
So there were two issues that were raised in the last 4 months, that being one of them. The second item that was raised is one of the houses that were on Fisher Road was using Stacy Lane as an access point to their backyard. I reached out to that homeowner, I sent them a letter. The reason for that access was they were building that house. They've since said they would respect my no trespass order, that they weren't going to use that anymore. And then regarding the conservation, we're in the process of that. The last item to check the box is to get grass seed in the area, which is the first few hundred feet, and that is being addressed. And we expect grass is going to grow as soon as the weather opens up, which I am optimistic is happening now after this little cold spell that we're having tonight. And I expect that is going to be resolved. I will work on getting that condition accepted. And if you are not inclined to vote in favor of it, I would ask for a short period of time just to allow me to get that done.
We could approve it subject to Conservation Commission clearance.
We could. Is this on the warrant, on the town meeting warrant?
It is.
It is, all right. So can you just explain a little bit about the, so the town meeting has to approve it.
That is correct.
But do we have to approve it before the town meeting, or like, how's that?
So this evening, if the board's in a position to make a vote, it would be to approve the layout. So this would be, the definitive plan that's presented here this evening, that would go to town meeting to formally accept it, as a public way. Now, to the comments that have been made here this evening, we can approve the layout subject to the issuance of a certificate of compliance from Conservation Commission. And what I would say to that is, we are planning to approve and post the warrant at the next meeting. So, I would say, if we did do a contingent approval, have that issuance prior to town meeting.
Prior to town meeting, but maybe not to our next meeting.
Yeah.
Because if they're going to
Yep.
plant grass.
Yeah, no, but prior to
By
town
May,
meeting,
they
we'd
should.
want to make sure that this certificate of compliance was in hand.
All right. And I just want to address the highway surveyor is always, he's right to bring up the fact that this is more work for his department, but also I got involved in town government from the beginning because I wanted my roadway accepted. And because, you're paying taxes on your roads, you deserve to be able to have, I want my taxes to pay for the road that goes in front of my house. So, Craig, were you about?
I was just going to move the approval subject to Conservation Commission clearance.
Second, Madam Chair.
Do we have any other discussion here?
I have a comment.
Okay, go for it.
Thank you, madam. Just to your argument to the point that it obviously may increase the value of those homes. When the developer came in and came before it to put those houses in, the people that bought those houses at that given time expected it to be a private roadway in a private way. Never, you're going down the line in the future to address it and, have the town accept it as a public roadway. And I continue to stress the resources that Westport has constrained. We're over 163 miles with 7 full-time highway department employees. It becomes more and more difficult. So I understand you're representing your client and the developer, but when it was brought forth, it was a private road. And if we continue to go down, no pun intended, this road with respect to every single development that comes in, I just don't see it being as sustainable. So I understand. And then for the conservation, I know that's not in the 331 meeting. Obviously, we meet every 2 weeks, and so that would probably be late April. So I just don't know timing-wise whether the grass will be there and whether you'll get the order of conditions and satisfied from conservation before that. So that's just where I'm at with that. Thank you.
Through the chair, if I may. Thank you very much for your comments, Selectman McGuinn. I would agree with you that these homeowners knew they were purchasing a private lot. My comment regarding the house valuation was more so that increased taxes to the town because the house values are high. You can rest assured in a positive vote in favor of this project today because your fellow planning board reviewed the plan and approved it. Notably, they did not approve it with any restriction of not turning it, but I can say that on other projects that I've done in town, they have made a decision on some of them where they definitely don't want it to become before you as a public road, and they put those covenants and restrictions on record, and that one just isn't here, which is why I'm asking for the vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is a public hearing. Is there anyone that has comment? All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve the layout of Stacy Lane, subject to the certificate of compliance from conservation. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Opposed.
So we have 3 in favor, 1 opposed, and 1 absent. That passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will work on making sure the sun shines and the grass grows. Have a great night.
Thank you.
The next item we have is an application request for the transfer of a Class 2 motor vehicle license from iCars, Inc. to Speedy Auto Loft located at 983 State Road. A vehicle limit of 43. Manager Fadi Hanain. Sorry if I got that wrong.
Good evening.
Hello. Can you
Hi,
introduce yourself?
my name is Fadi Hanain, 185 High Crest Road, Fall River, Mass.
And
I'm
can you tell us,
requesting a license transfer. I bought iCars on 983 State Road, and I would love to get your okay on that, please.
are there any changes to the number of vehicles or the use or the layout of the lot?
Everything's still the same. I requested to add 13 extra cars because I requested a new site plan, a new parking plan, which I submitted to the building department, and they approved it.
Okay. All right, and then I do want to just mention, we have a favorable police report on record, and it looks like everything else has been done. Any questions from the board?
No.
Anything from the public?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's
Thank you.
4 in favor, 1
Thanks.
absent. Thank you. Good luck. Now the moment you're all waiting for. Request, maybe not all of you. We have a request for the trench excavation permit from the Westport Harbor Water Association, WHWA, regarding the River Road Water Main Project. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello. Good evening, Madam Chair and board members.
You can sit.
Quick question, will you be able to flip through every sheet? It's a 9-sheet set.
Unfortunately, this is a presentation, so I can certainly pull it up if you give me a minute, but this is just a PowerPoint, so.
Okay.
We do have in our packet,
We have access.
we all have it. The rest of the public won't be able to see it.
Set of-
Oh,
Yeah, so I can work on that if you guys,
I have a set of legs with a whole set of plans, if I could set it up and point it out
Oh,
and walk you through it.
okay.
give me 1 minute and I can get that set up for you.
Okay.
Perfect.
Hi, Attorney Chris Conley for the Harbor Association, Westport Harbor Water Association.
Good evening, Walter Hermano, professional engineer, Hermano, consultant engineers.
You guys are welcome to sit.
Thank you for hearing us tonight. Before you representing the design of a water line, and we're looking for a trench application permit for Westport Harbor Water Association. That's my client. There are several representatives from the association behind me. We also have a design team, and I have several of those members with me as well. Westport Harbor Water Association is a public water supply, and they have a community membership of about 50 people, 50 dwellings, that is. They are in desperate need of a good water supply. They currently draw from 3 wells out of a pump house right next to 52 Perch Rock Road. The water is taken in brackish water from the Cauquis Pond, and it's not producing, it doesn't have the capacity that they need. So they have been working diligently for a few years now, and they have a well field that's been approved by the DEP. And that's up on the north end of the project, because the whole project is close to 3,500 linear feet, thereabouts. And that well field is on 755 River Road. Once again, approved by DEP. And you see on this sheet right here, existing conditions. We have 3 sheets for existing conditions, given the length of the project. And we're here before you for 2,550 feet of River Road, which is the public way. And that is the section of the project that we're asking for the permit to install the water line to open the public way. Now, this sheet right here refers to the River Road on the lower portion, and also the private way, which is Maycomber and Perch Rock Road. And tonight I'll discuss everything along River Road pertinent to our application. If we could go down a few sheets, please. We will get to what I call the beginning of the project. You keep going, keep going. Yeah. You have it right there, thank you. Okay. We have located every foot along this way by survey. We've also studied it by ground penetrating radar. And I've also walked it with members of another association because there's another water line that's in the road. The applicant, Westport Harbor Water Association, would like to install a 4-inch water main that takes the raw water from this well field. Let's see if this will work. It won't show up on the screen. We have the well field where the water starts. It comes out of that location. We would like to draw it through a 4-inch PVC pipe called Blue Brute, and that conveys the water all the way down River Road and all the way to the pump house over 3,500 feet away. Coming back, after it receives treatment at the pump house, we have a 2-inch water distribution line that's coming back down the same trench, and that's to serve 2 properties on River Road that will be members of this association. Most of the layout for this project, I have tried to keep it off the paved width. There are exceptions where I have no choice, I have to be under the pavement. We have extensive bedrock, shallow and competent, as town residents may be aware, especially in this area. We have numerous outcrops. If you could advance it 1 sheet to number 6, I believe. The other way? All right, back it up 1 way.
One more.
Right there. All right. To the right of your screen, we have 755 River Road. You see a huge outcrop section right there that's sitting right on the edge of the road. In approximately that area, we intend to stay on the opposite side of the road, then cross the road, and then come back down, heading towards the herring run. We have been before conservation because of the wetlands that are associated off the road and also including the herring run. We've received a letter from the Division of Fisheries indicating when we can and cannot work over Culvert Road, over the herring run, because the culvert transfers the water from Cocky's Pond to the harbor and vice versa. It's also migratory for the alewife and other species. So they have told us March 15th to the end of June, we're not to work over that culvert. I asked Conservation how close could we get. They said within 200 feet coming from either approach. And other measures that Conservation asked for was that we extend the siltation control, erosion control onto both sides of the road, which I have added to our plan. And then we received our order of conditions from Conservation Commission. So that brings me up to speed where we are now before you, hoping to gain approval for this project to open the public way in order to construct this water line and the distribution line in River Road. I should add also that we did meet with the highway surveyor and the highway surveyor's peer review consultant. They had some questions regarding the pavement repair and over the trenches and so forth. And they held firm and insisted that we have 4 inches of asphalt instead of 3, which was fine. We changed that. They made it very clear, any damaged asphalt would be replaced accordingly per their specifications. And we know we have some areas in the roadway, so we are going to repair that fully. They have a 60 to 75-day period where they would like us to let it settle out. We're going to ensure that it's compacted properly, even with density testing, just to prove that. But that waiting period, we have no objection to that before we would finalize and put a final layer or two of hot mix asphalt over the roadway to restore it. The culvert crossing, we're proposing to go over the existing culvert pipe with the 4-inch line and the 2-inch return. We have insulation above and below for anywhere throughout the project where we can't achieve a depth of 4.5 feet. But over the culvert, since we don't have 4.5 feet of cover, we have more along the lines of 3 feet. We're going to propose insulation both below and above. It's a 2-inch board that stays in the environment under the existing asphalt. You'll see a new subbase put above that, and then that entire full width over the culvert will be repaired with new asphalt. We're also putting on this water line, we're putting a tracer wire along its entire length. All right, that way we can locate this water line later on in the future. We're also going to have it documented and as-built. We're going to have it all by GPS coordinates so it can be reproduced in the field if necessary. That is the 4-inch line and the 2-inch line. The existing and other water main by Pond Meadow, there was no as-built for that, but I was able to walk that line with representatives of their association. They're totally separate and not affiliated with Westport Harbor, but they identified where the line was approximately. They were very helpful. It was put in 1985, and we have a design plan, so that gave us some guidance as to where it was, and then we verified it by GPR that went the entire length of River Road for our project. So we're confident we know exactly where their water line is. We're going to stay a sufficient distance from their water line where we have to be next to it. And that water line that they have in the ground, we're not to disturb that. We're not going to touch that. In case something happened, if a piece was broken, if it wasn't located properly, or say a rock disturbed it, it will be repaired. It's not going to be left in disrepair. It will be taken care of during the construction process. What else can I explain at this point? We have tracer wire for our water lines. We also have blow-offs for our water system. We have at our pump house, we have discharge lines that are going out to the back. We have a dry well that will receive treatment water because the water has to be treated. It's a dry well. It's going to be receiving approval from the DEP. It's called underground injection control. We have to submit to them that dry well, and therefore they'll approve that. Any other stretches along the road? Anticipated time frame to get this project done, I can't see it taking more than 2 months. We've talked to some excavators. They feel they could actually be in and out of River Road in a week or two. That would be weather permitting in good conditions. But I wouldn't expect it to take any more than 2 months. Again, we can't work over the culvert until the end of June. And the applicants sincerely wish we could get approval to get this water line installed because they do need a new source of water.
I know they've been working on it for a long time. I just want to, I just have a couple comments. So in our packet, so I think you were also one of the hearings that got postponed because of the storm. So some of this is kind of old. The one, are you going to see the police department recommendations was basically make sure you have proper traffic control and proper notification of the people in the area that are going to be impacted. So we talked about the scheduling, make sure that the neighbors are aware of what's going on and that you're working with appropriate details from the police department. You addressed this pretty much, but there's a detailed memo in here from the highway surveyor with a number of points. I think most of them you covered, but is this letter, the letter that we have, has 9 points, it's dated February 3rd. He talked about the trench details is not conforming to standards and requirements. He needs bigger cutback. I think he wanted more super paved service. Have you addressed all these items with the highway surveyor?
Yes, we have. They wanted 1.75 inches of super pave surface course. They wanted 2.25 super pave intermediate course. And that's for areas over the trench. And we've increased that because adding those up, that's 4 inches where I only had 3 to begin with. So we've changed that to 4. I have that in every detail. I just made these changes this past weekend, so you won't see it on your screen. I apologize. You'll get a complete copy of that, though. And these trench details are important. We incorporated that into it. We also have a 2-foot cutback as they requested. Originally, we had a 6-inch cutback, but we'll do a 2-foot cutback. They have, in their comments, they explained that they understand a lot of the project is proposed off the paved width, okay, off the paved roadway width. The road's about 20 feet wide, and we have a 40-foot layout. Some areas, we have 10 or 12 feet to the pavement. If no pavement is destroyed, it does not have to be replaced, doesn't have to be repaired. That's what the town's consultant explained to us. However, if we are to destroy any pavement with the equipment or during a trench, if a big boulder comes out, we lose the side of the roadway, okay, those areas would have to receive a half-paved width of asphalt in order to make the repair proper according to the highway surveyor's requirements. Areas within the roadway, it's going to be an automatic half-paved width to the crown. And if we happen to damage anything beyond the crown, heading to the other half of the roadway, then it becomes a full paved width. Just last week, we had one of our personnel go down the roadway. They did a few test spots with half-inch drill, and they found that the existing roadway has 4 inches of asphalt, all right? Which 4 inches of asphalt means we can cold plane mill 2 inches in order to make a repair and replace that with 2 inches of asphalt, and then you still have your 4 inches of asphalt that's required by the highway department. So to answer your question, I hope I have been complete. We do have all the necessary changes made to the plan that should satisfy the highways department.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything, gentlemen?
A couple of questions. I was just, maybe this is for Mr. Vitale. Was the planning board involved in this at all? I didn't see anything in our package.
No, they were not involved.
So I know the planning board is interested in the water situation in the entire area, and I think we had a study done by a hydrologist not too long ago. And you have 25 members. Is there an intent here to expand the membership of the organization as part of this project, or is this simply to replace what you have now, which is insufficient, and continue to service these 25 homes?
They actually have 50 homes, and their intent is to bring, I'd have to ask the applicants just to be certain, I believe there's 2 new homes that are going to come on this system and be part of the association. That's 755 River Road, and also, I want to say it's 801 River Road. It's near to the Herring Run. But that's the 2-inch distribution line that you see that's coming back from the pump house. That'll serve those 2 individuals. Because I don't believe they're currently on that system, but we would have a total of 50 dwellings that are members of this association.
Do you have additional applicants for water?
If I could defer to the water treatment operators and/or the applicant to answer that question, that would be best.
Unfortunately, you need to go to a microphone, though. Sorry.
That one's beyond me. I don't know.
Yeah,
the
okay.
answer to that.
I'm Michael Cronin. I take responsibility for operations of the water system. To answer that question, we're very restricted, obviously, right now with our, the 2 wells that we do use for the 50 homes. we're actually adding the two people up the street because they're giving us easements. However, we're a community, we have an open mind. If the wells kind of play out and we have capacity, where we're told we have to wait probably a year or two of usage to find out what water is really going to come out of the new wells. And we'll have to shut off our existing well, one of the one that's impaired by the Cocky's Pond. But I guess we have an open mind, but we have really no plans. Right now, we can't do it because of the restrictions we're under. But down the road, no pun intended, if the water, quality, there are some homes that we could hook up. However, we're limited by our distribution system. So if a new house wants to be on it, they would have to personally pay for access to the distribution system, which will be around $25,000 to $50,000 per home.
Yeah, okay, I'm just curious about that. I don't think it directly relates to the approval of this or not, but I was just curious as learning more about how the water is there, and we've had other people come before us, including the group that I talked about with the hydrology survey that was done using federal funds. So I know it's an ongoing issue, and I know the planning board has expressed interest in what do we do long-term here, but that's for another day.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board?
Just a quick comment. The Westport Harbor Association, you guys have been looking for this water for decades, as both Shauna and Dick had pointed out, and appreciate, obviously, you guys as a group of residents, moving forward and getting this stuff done. I do want to point out, with respect to when we have a large public utility come in and say they're going to lay 4,800 feet of conduit, and it's going to take them a year, and you guys are about doing half the length and can do it in 2 months. So again, I'm big proponent of private businesses as opposed to some of this public nature of this. So you guys have been professional all along the line. We appreciate it, especially with respect with conservation and both working with conservation and the highway department. So I appreciate all the work you've done. And again, this is a strictly private entity doing the work.
I don't want to just disparage my colleague here, but the permit for this is a 12-month duration estimated, right? So the permit is 12 months, although they're convinced it'll happen quicker.
I will
think
take the.
that's case
I'll
for
take
the
the.
previous applicant as well.
I'll take the race with these guys.
If I may.
Yeah.
It's good that it's 12 months because even though there's a 60 to 75-day waiting period for settlement of any trench work in the roadway, the contractor informed me, one contractor that we spoke with, he says, ideally, he'd like to see it go a full season. So we could have Mother Nature, we could have car tires gently compacting that, just to really make it compact before you get your final treatment of hot mix asphalt to seal the road.
One more comment on that. And I know you have a restriction on timing as to when you can actually do the work. Again, I will point out, similar to the other one, there's obviously a large number of residents that come into that area come summertime. So just be cognizant of that with Elephant Rock and all the beach clubs that are down there that could be impacted. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is a public hearing. Do we have comments from the public? I would just want to encourage you to, if you're all on the same side of the issue, maybe we don't need to hear from everybody. But go ahead. You have to go to a microphone. Just so the people on the video can hear it.
We've got a huge viewership.
We do. Actually, our note taker is taking notes from the video today, and so.
Where's the camera? I'm reading a statement from our board, if I may, please. My name is Barbara Wisbach. I'm at 27 Prospect Avenue in Westport. Our two existing wells are bedrock wells constructed in the late 1800s and are well past their projected lifespan. Should one fail, state regs prohibit their replacement on site due to inadequate space. Replacement well cannot be within 250 feet of these current wells. Both wells are vulnerable to high levels of sodium, significantly aggravated by drought and summer demand. Appliances rust out every 3 to 5 years. Water is undrinkable by mid-late summer, and we provide high sodium warnings for all of our members. We have strict water conservation measures in place that will continue with the new water supply. No pools, no in-ground irrigation, handheld watering only, and rapid response. Like, I'm losing my voice.
You're doing fine.
Thank you. In 2004, Mass DEP categorized one of the wells as groundwater under the influence of surface water and required us to find a new water source. So far, for the past 22 years, we have tried to find a new well site. Given the size of our system and the requirements for Zone 1 control around the wellhead, we were in need of approximately 8 acres of undeveloped land in the harbor. This was both close to impossible to find and to afford. Since 2020, we have optioned 3 sites and seriously explored options at 3 others. We are extremely fortunate that the owners of the current well site were willing to work with us and that the site produced water, which has now been permitted by the state for a public water supply. The cost for all this is prohibitive and borne by 50 households, some of whom struggle financially despite what one may think given the location of their homes. We are enormously grateful to the many town employees and elected officials who have shared their expertise with us, particularly over the past 6 years, as we've tried to bring potable water to these households. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
My name is Kim Sewell, and I have a house across the street from this. I wish we could see it a little bit better. But one concern that I'm also work with the Spindle Rock Land Corporation, which is the Spindle Rock Club right there. And we realized, I discussed with members of the Land Corp this past weekend about there is an easement that is required over the Spindle Rock property, which I do not believe has been approved or accepted. So it's a question on whether that easement has not been agreed to at this point.
Can you address that?
Yes, I can address that. Thank you for the comments. I was in discussions today with the president of Westport Harbor Water Association, Carolyn Fenn, and she asked me if there was any alternatives, and I said, there is. You can put that section of the road, section of the water line, in the roadway, and it'll be additional expense to the Westport Harbor Water Association in order to do that. But they are willing to put it in the roadway and forego that easement if necessary.
That was the answer.
All right? Yeah.
So this board can approve the project, but we wouldn't have anything to do with the easements. That's separate. Are there any other comments?
Kim, sorry, I guess I don't understand the easement, without the easement, but they would still get the permit?
We can permit something. If they can't legally provide it, then they don't get to provide it, right? So it sounded like they have an alternative if they don't have the easement. It sounds like they have an alternative.
Yeah,
Can we be sure of that?
Well, they can't legally build on your land without your permission, right? So we can't do it. I mean, we could in a totally different format do a taking of an easement, but that's not on the table right now. But we can't allow them to go on someone else's property to do something. We're only in charge of our roadway easements. I don't know if that answered the question, but.
No, quick question, Madam Chair. So are you in discussions with them, or is it basically you're going to go with option B for the roadway cut?
Yeah, I can refer to Attorney Conley here. You're in charge of the easements, sir.
I did draft a proposed easement for the Spindle Rock Land Corporation, and they are discussing it, but I think we're ready to go with Plan B if it doesn't seem like they're amenable to the easement.
Okay. In your construction, you said wouldn't start till after June 15th with the with that situation, right? So you have time with respect to.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Could you embellish more on what the nature of the dispute is? I don't even know if it's a dispute or just a discussion.
It's just a discussion. I wasn't party to it, but it's been relayed to me that it's a negotiation, and Spindle Rock Land Corporation wants X, and that may be cost prohibitive to the Water Harbor Association, and it might just try and just go with the trench permit. It would be more affordable to the Water Association.
But I would wonder, Madam Chair, maybe Mr. Vitale knows this, are we precluded from approving this permit because of that unresolved?
The plans
Issue.
before us right now, the plans that we have before us, are they for the option B, or are they with, included in the easement?
No. I just had that discussion today with the president, and I've not had an opportunity to change the plan to agree with what I just explained.
All right, so you'd need, what do we do, put some condition on the,
So, just to clarify, and maybe I miss it, does the current plan include that there's an easement, or is it on the town, within the town right of way?
The current plan as submitted includes the Spindle Rock easement,
Okay.
which is a 10-foot wide by 160-foot long strip.
Can,
We can show that on the plan if you'd like.
yeah, actually, can you show that on the plan where we're looking at this? Sorry.
so the current plan that we have in the drawings assumes that you will negotiate an easement.
That's correct.
So if that is not, if you're not able to negotiate an easement, you do have an alternative plan, but you would have to amend the plan.
Right, we would revise the plan to reflect that the water line will now be, the proposed water line, the 4-inch main will be in the roadway and underneath the paved surface. Again, we were trying to avoid as much pavement disturbance originally as possible. Also, there is that big piece of ledge outcrop at 755.
Do you want to direct him to which page?
It's very daunting. It is, if you go to, maybe try 6 or 7, maybe 7, please. Oh, I'm sorry, 6. There you go. If you see River Road in the middle, on the left side of the screen, there's a rectangular shaped easement. You go down a little bit, down right there. That's the easement that's on the current plan that we're discussing, Spindle Rock easement. We could forego that, and we could put our water line completely in the public way, but it will be underneath the paved roadway, so that will incur a greater expense for asphalt repair. But again, it is feasible to go that route, and if that's what the association selects, then I can revise the plan and submit it for a final copy for the select board.
So you'd have to resubmit that, obviously, plan with those changes to that?
Yep.
I mean, should we just
You
continue
like
with
how,
that?
I mean, so should we continue the hearing? Can we put a condition, like what?
So, if the board is comfortable with, again, that change, for that segment of the improvement, you can just put a condition on that. In addition to the other conditions that are put on this approval, if the board feels more comfortable continuing to the next meeting to see if those conversations have progressed and we have a definitive answer, then either option's available to you.
So I'm only speaking for myself. Doesn't bother me either way. If whether it's going on their easement or their roadways, they need to work that out. So that wouldn't be, that wouldn't affect my decision whether to approve this or not. That's why I was trying to figure out if there's a way we can conditional, if there's some way we can approve either option.
There is, yes, we can set that as a condition, and I can come up with some language for that.
Or we're going to be dumping this entire hearing section of our meeting into.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to just
Yeah.
keep continuing it because I think it's an important project for the neighborhood and I don't want to keep continuing it. But I mean, this is a real concern, right? You have to, there's a little section in there that you don't have finally resolved. So,
And maybe you condition it based on, because they're doing other cuts in the roadways, right? So obviously, the conditions that the Westport Highway Department already laid out for the other road cuts would come into play here. So I don't see that changing as to what they would want, from different standards from further down the roadway. So, okay, with whatever.
Craig, you're usually good at suggestions in times like this.
All right.
I'm going to say basically, approve the plan, subject to any revisions that are consistent with the plan that we've seen.
Second.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? Go ahead, Chris.
So if we're ready to make motions, I do have a list of conditions for this approval. I just don't know if the board's ready to go over those.
Well, he just made the motion, so let's see if he wants to amend the motion.
I'll amend the motion and let's hear the conditions now. And really,
All right, obviously.
You amend your second, once you hear them. Okay, go ahead.
All right, so there are a few conditions that we place on projects like these. So first is, we would require a cash bond in amount set by the highway surveyor. Second condition, we would look for a indemnity and hold harmless agreement in a form that's acceptable to the town for any work that's done within our layout. We would require proof of insurance with the town named as an additional insured in an amount acceptable by the town in consultation with town council. As you noted, police details, we would make those required as determined by our chief of police. We would ask that open trenches be covered or plated each night for public safety. That all work, I know some of it was mentioned, subject to the approval inspection and the standards set by our highway surveyor. That they comply with all other town boards, departments, and agencies necessary to complete the project. Upon the completion of the project, that the town be provided a copy of the as-built plan. Similar to our last discussion topic, we would require the applicant be responsible for any settlement repairs for a period of 2 years after the project's been completed, again, within the roadway. And for the condition that was set just now with regard to that segment. In addition, if we wanted to include that they notify the highway department 40 hours in advance of any work being done, maintaining access for emergency vehicles, residents, and businesses, and that if in the future that this infrastructure had to be relocated, it would be at the applicant's expense if required. And that's my list.
Wow, that was a great motion, Craig.
Could I add one more to that? If you don't come to a conclusion on the easement for Spindle Rock, just submission of the plans with the road cut in there.
Yes.
Because, and I don't know if you might have covered it somewhere in that list.
Yep.
But I just want to make sure that's covered. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Are there any questions or concerns about those conditions he just listed? I'm asking you. You're the engineer, the engineer and the lawyer.
The last one, applicants expected to pay for relocation of any of the water line in the future. Could you be a little clearer on that?
Certainly. So for whatever reason, if there was ever either something that was initiated through you or there was an improvement and it required a relocation of it, or really just any expense related to the ongoing maintenance of that, we want to specify this isn't the town's, so we shouldn't be responsible for any of the ongoing work for that. So if that requires any future improvements, future maintenance, we want to make sure that, we're noting this isn't the town of Westport's responsibility.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? That's 4 in favor and 1 absent.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you very
luck.
much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
I appreciate your time and your comments and your help on the project. Have a good night.
Good luck.
Good luck. We'll give a moment for the audience to depart quietly and not congregating in the hallway. You're all welcome to stay. No one ever does. Oh, no, we're.
Occasionally.
So just, I guess, closing that out, I'll follow up with them to make sure that
Yeah,
those conditions are followed up on.
yeah. All right, the next item we have 4A, we have a request from the Cultural Council Chair, Rob Del Gaudio, to appoint Kevin Gumbert to the Cultural Council.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Madam Chair, I just wanted
Yes.
to make a comment. His name is Kenneth, I believe, or Ken. The letter that he
Oh.
submitted said Ken.
Ken Gumbert?
Yeah, it's father, Ken. I know him, and Kenneth is his name. But in his letter, he just refers to himself as Ken,
Okay.
but not Kevin. Okay, just to
Okay,
clarify.
so we had the wrong name. So
And-
we're going to appoint Ken.
Yeah, motion to appoint Ken.
Yeah, and I do know him. He's a great guy, and he would be a wonderful addition to the Cultural Council. So I'm in
Okay.
favor of the motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's 4 in favor and 1 absent. We have a request from Carolyn Edwards to resign from the Cultural Council effective April 9, 2026.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's 4 in favor and 1 absent. We have a request from the Town Administrator, Chris Vitale, to accept the resignation of Craig Kadima as Special Equipment Operator effective February 2nd, right before the storm.
Yes.
Yeah, that was helpful.
Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's 4 in favor and 1 absent.
Just one moment. Sir, I didn't catch your name earlier, but I wanted to just get your information. I don't want you to obviously have to wait here.
He's the record keeper, right? Note taker.
Doing multi-duty. All right, the next one is from Chris, so we're going to invite Chris. So we have a request from the town clerk, Kristen Simpson, to approve change official posting location for public bodies.
Yes.
Tell us what this is about.
So we currently post at the, on the board outside downstairs by the elevator. And, you know, there's always chaotic, there's always a lot going on there, there's things taped to the bottom. We also always post on the website, and we would just like to make the website the official location.
Because I think my recollection is we're optionally posting on the website, right?
Right, we're optionally posting on the website now. We do it, you know, as a community engagement and availability situation. The biggest issue with the, other than it just being redundant and not used often and it being messy, other than those little things, the concern is, let's say the storm.
So, Chris, can you just turn off your mic? That would help.
Sorry.
So, for example, this storm, people canceled meetings, so pulling them off of that board wasn't really an option. Meetings were posted. Luckily, I had a requirement. To be there for a election deadline, so I trudged over, and my husband shoveled out a walkway to the door for me. And I was there, so I was able to post, but in most situations, I would not have done that. And then anything that was posted during that time, if we had only posted it online and didn't put it, then they wouldn't be official meetings. The votes wouldn't count, nothing would be relevant from those meetings. So it just makes sense to me to have it someplace where it can be accessed from a computer at home, if I need to.
I know, we looked into changing this a number of years ago, and the clerk's office was not in favor of it at the time, so.
Yeah, I
I think
think,
it's
you know,
part of the modernization of the clerk's office that you've been doing.
I lean a little more towards the modernization of it, yeah. So, and then in the window, what we will do is we will post a poster that shows where the, how to access the meetings from that point on.
So anybody who's
So
drives to
somebody
town hall and
happens
looks
to-
at the bulletin.
Right, you know, there's a few people that look
Yeah.
at it, you know, there's a few. And they would be able to see then and then know where the access is moving forward. So,
Madam Chair?
that's it.
Yes, go ahead.
We did look at this a few years ago. Wasn't there a requirement, or is there a requirement, Chris, that the Attorney General has to approve this?
You just have to notify the Attorney
Okay.
General. Yeah, so I've already actually written out a statement, and all I will do is tomorrow I will send that over to them if you approve it. And then we can start moving forward with that sooner than later.
Okay. If I can follow up.
Yep.
I would assume that that would Well, I was going to say, we have people that may not, seniors perhaps, but it could be others who don't go online.
Right.
So has that been a factor of discussion or consideration?
It has been a consideration, but I do think fewer and fewer people are currently using the posting board. They do have to go there, they have to drive there, they have to stand outside. One of the bigger problems too is because we post those paper notifications, we have to put them all on sheets that will fit in that space. So the writing is itsy bitsy tiny, so
yeah.
I think that there's, positives and negatives of it. So even if there are some people who have more habitually have decided to go to it, I have also gotten feedback that we should make the font much bigger and, things like that. And I think that overall, I'm always willing to help residents if they want to reach out and have questions about meetings when they're happening, or how to find it, help direct them where it is on the website. I'm always open to helping residents with some of these changes. So I know there's changes happen and they're not always awesome, particularly for our more senior residents.
Well, Madam, I would assume that we're not the first one doing this.
No, we're actually far from it. We're one of the last ones
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
this. We've been holding tight to this
Yeah.
posting board for a
Time
pretty
has-
long time, I
time has
think.
come.
So, yeah.
Did you?
The only question I had on that, for when they come to the website for the landing page, would the posting just be when you click on the calendar where the agenda is, that considered the official posting, or will there be a landing page where they have everything?
So currently, I am trying to shift it to just the calendar.
Okay.
Because then you can see what meetings are there and you can see a list of all events. So then it kind of puts it all in one place.
Yep.
Chris and I have been discussing, the website is not perfect with the way whether or not it allows me to upload the agenda. So currently, I'm also posting it on the town clerk's webpage under agendas. Ideally, they would be posted individually by the people having the meetings on the web pages, or if there's a department head that handles theirs. So ideally, in the long run, those agendas would be secondary in the pages, since we have a page for everything. And that would not be my responsibility at that point. And I would post the meeting under the calendar with an attached agenda.
Okay.
So then there's always, and that's on the home page. It's right there, so you can see what they are. But right now, we're going to continue to kind of, it's actually like a 10-step process. It's each meeting, and every time somebody changes one, and but for now, it's going to be posted in 2 places. Yeah.
I know Sean and I are all in support of getting somebody to manage the webpage better. So.
Definitely, add me to that list.
We will hopefully figure that out in the future, but I agree. It needs to be a little cleaner. But thank you, Chris, for working with Chris on that.
Anything else from the board?
Motion.
All right, so what's the pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any
Spoke
dis-
first.
Go
The
ahead.
tie, you took-
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's 4 in favor and 1 absent. Did you have anything else?
Not on this one. I'm going to see you at the next meeting.
Okay, April 14, town elections.
Yeah, I'm going to see April.
And when's the town meeting? Is
May 5th.
May 5th. April 14, May 5th, mark your calendar.
Yes, don't forget, everybody. There's an election, come to it.
And the April 14 election starts at 10 a.m.
10 a.m., it starts at 10 a.m., everyone.
Yeah,
Well, I'm
thank
gonna go, I'm sorry you're gonna be lonely.
Well, that's all
We
right.
still have an audience right there.
One audience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a request from David Aurelio of Westport Babe Ruth League to name the 2 Little League fields located at 17 Main Road in honor of Ray Elias. Actually, we don't have anyone here to talk about that?
We do not, which I'm surprised on.
I
This-
am.
this-
Did they know?
They did receive notification on this, so, I'll just say that we had received this request a while back. Ray had been very involved in the community. This was something that this league was hoping to move forward. And as part of that, I know, at least in my conversations with them, they were talking about putting some type of, signage or plaque out there.
Yes, I'm
Again,
looking,
as part of this dedication overall. But I'll just say that I hadn't received any size on that. It was just very conceptual in the conversations that we received up to this point.
so I'm assuming they're going to plan some sort of dedication ceremony or something.
I would
So this
assume.
is just the board approval. that
They
it's
have it
okay.
done by their opening day or something like that, I would assume.
Yeah, because I'm reading the letter. The letter from the president of the Westport Babe Ruth League. I'm reaching out because we'd like to name the 2 Little League fields in honor of Ray Elias. We planned on getting 2 signs made up like the kind we use for sponsorship, would hang one from each scorecard. So that's all it really says, but I think Ray was instrumental in getting the whole league running for years, right? So.
Yep.
So what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve,
Second.
naming the fields in the name of Ray Elias.
By 17, maybe.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's 4 in favor and 1 absent. We have a request from the highway surveyor, Christopher Gonzalez, to execute a DOT reimbursement payment document for initial work expenses performed in 2025. Chris, you want to tell us about that?
Sure. So this request is to sign a reimbursement form for the 2025 Phase 1 roadway paving project. The improvements include paving, drainage, and line striping on Old County Road and several other roads, I think 8 total, totaling 5.7 miles. The project is complete and under warranty, and the signing will allow the town to receive reimbursement for eligible costs.
All right, anything from the board?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's 4 in favor and 1 absent. Request from the town administrator to approve the sustainable purchasing policy. You want to tell us about that one?
Certainly. So this policy is intended to replace the old buy recycled policy, which we have issued every year. So instead of focusing on only recycled products, it has staff consider waste, reuse, environmental impacts when making purchasing decisions. So encourages buying durable, reusable, recycled content, and following the state and federal purchasing guidelines. So this was a new requirement to participate in Mass DEP's Sustainable Material Recovery Program, so SMRP. So again, a prior condition of that was that the town had a buy to recycled policy, but now they have expanded that. So this will allow us to continue to get the benefits, including grants and technical assistance through that funding source. So I recommend approval.
All right, thank you. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, I don't want to belabor the point. What grants are linked to this specific policy with respect that would be getting from the Commonwealth?
So this program, it funds a few different activities. I guess the latest I'd have to follow up with you on through our highway surveyor for recent funding that we've received. But I know it's a litany of eligible expenses that the town can seek funding through this program for.
And with respect to have they looked at costs associated with buying products that, may fall under these categories? Are they more expensive to the towns because we're buying a specific product?
Yeah, so what I would say here is that, for every single purchase, obviously, it has to be something that the town has budgeted. So anything, more or less, we would make sure that, it's only when feasible. And, we've determined that it's in the best interest of the town to do so. I think it's really targeting, routine purchases where the option is out there. It's just that we're not really, I wouldn't say thinking about it, but it, makes people want to think, I guess, the next time they make some of these purchases where, if it is something that's reusable, that we're mindful of that anytime that we make a purchase of, I would say, routine items.
So we're not mandated to do that if we had other options available?
No, so so this, as it's written, there's no mandate in here. This is more or less guidance that we give our departments when considering procuring items. So I'll just say, paper, if there is an option out there that's more sustainable, there's certain things where, rather than a one-time use, if there's an alternative where it's a reusable item, it's intended to guide departments to think about that before making the procurement.
There is a clause in this policy that says, by including environmental, public health, and waste reduction consideration in our purchasing decisions, along with price, performance, and product availability, we can remain fiscally responsible while promoting practices that minimize waste and environmental impacts.
Okay.
So specifically, it doesn't say you have to choose.
And I appreciate the clarification on that. I will change my vote in support.
Wow.
And I'll follow up as well, because I do want to have the board know, I guess, what the town's been benefiting from through this program and the funding. So I can definitely
Yeah,
Chris on that too.
I just obviously am cognizant of state mandates. Just a quick, perfect example, Prop 65 in California, which names 900 chemicals that may be harmful to your health. What ended up happening in California is every single industry has a Prop 65 warning, right? So it defeats the purpose, right? So I'm not looking for a mandate that basically forces us to do something that we otherwise would not. But I always look at that Prop 65, and we get items here in Massachusetts that have that on there, and no one has any idea what's in the item that's going to hurt them, but everyone just over lists. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Anything else? What's the pleasure? I think someone else is going to have to move this other than Jake. Because he was a no until
You
minutes
have
ago.
my vote.
Yeah.
I will move to approve the sustainable purchasing policy as recommended from the town administrator.
Madam Chair, second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So it's 4 in favor and 1 absent. We did have an item on here, a request to approve the Director of Senior Services job description. You may have noticed that the job description wasn't in your packet, so we can't really approve it yet. So Chris has asked us to pass over or table this one. I did have a question, though.
Sorry.
So we're reviewing it with the Council on Aging, so we're getting input from the Council on Aging. And then is this a position that needs to go to the Personnel Board or not needs to go before the Personnel Board?
So I did receive a draft copy of the changes that the Council on Aging would like to see. So I know they've spent several months working on it. So I'm taking their recommendations under advisement, and there's a few additions that I'm going to be making for the latest draft of the board. I did talk to Cindy, the chair of the Personnel Board. She had indicated that this is not something that they intended on picking up because it's a contracted position. So based on my conversation, she deferred to the Select Board with regards to any changes, that the board wanted to see out of the job description.
Okay. Yeah, because I was thinking that the Personnel Board didn't have jurisdiction over the employment contracts, but, okay, all right. All right, so we will take that up at a future meeting.
That's right.
All right, anything else before we move off of that one?
No.
So we have a request from the Cemetery Department to post a seasonal laborer position.
Yes, this request came from Paula within my office to move forward with posting for seasonal assistance. This is something the town has done about this time every single year in anticipation of the spring and summer months when additional assistance is needed. I believe in the past they've assisted our department with mowing and trimming. And in the past it's been posted at 40 hours at just about $20 an hour. So recommend authorization to post.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's 4 in favor and 1 absent. Discuss, review, and approve the annual town meeting warrant. So anything notable you wanted to call to our attention?
Yes, a few things. So since our last meeting, we are on draft number 8. The latest draft's in your packet. The new version includes council's first round of comments, so they went through with fine-tooth comb, they went through all the articles, some small changes here and there. But like I said, the intent remains the same. Of note, we are still working through the personnel bylaw amendment article and the tax title article. So with regards to the personnel bylaw changes, they have suggested that we make some targeted changes just based off of what they'd like to have retained within the bylaw, and what things, based on the intent that we're trying to do here, is it more appropriate or beneficial to take out and have it be a separate policy? So I had a conversation with them last week and again today, and should have that to the board ahead of the next meeting. I will also say that as part of that, I will also be sending over that to the Personnel Board so that they can make a recommendation on that and continue the conversation from the last meeting. For the tax title article, we are also looping in bond counsel because we want to make sure that how it's being proposed doesn't affect us from a bond rating standpoint or anything like that. So we've sent over the draft to them, and we're just waiting on their final recommendations and feedback. So I will note that tomorrow, the Finance Committee plans to make their recommendations on the articles so that they can be passed on to the board. I will say that most of the discussion's been around the free cash allocations this year, as well as just general discussions about the stabilization funds, the amounts, and it's been good discussion over the last several meetings. So those are the first two things. One of the items from council that they were looking to get the board's feedback on is Article 16. This is with regards to the revolving accounts. So as it's currently structured, the article is essentially doing two functions. One is it's setting the maximum expenditure amount for the year. The other is, and you'll see the highlighted within the packet, is there's a couple of those revolving funds that are increasing their amount from prior years. So council had just wanted us to confirm that we want to move ahead with it being one article with those two purposes, or if the board wanted to see that separated as two separate articles, one to raise the threshold, the other to set the maximum expenditure limits for the year. Either way, they said both are acceptable. It's a preference item at this point.
I think this is how we've done it in previous years,
Yeah.
isn't it?
I thought it was, and I was going to ask that. So I'd be interested in what the arguments would be to change it.
Yeah, I'd asked that question. I think, again, from my conversation, not knowing the prior years, I think it was his belief that it was two separate articles in the past, but I could be wrong on that.
I think I do recall that because I remember once I was confused about a fire department revolving fund, and it looked like it was duplicative. It wasn't. One was, I guess, the minimum, the other was the maximum. So we generally have not done that, but it has appeared from time to time. I don't know what the purpose, though, is. To me, having a maximum, which is what this says, makes sense. I mean, do we care what the minimum is? I mean, is there any policy issue there?
Well, they're increasing the maximum, right? Is that-
In this one, yeah.
So-
That's correct.
So like on the Council on Aging programs, you probably don't have it right in front of you, but it was something less than 65,000.
That's correct. I don't have last year's amount, but the highlighted numbers include the requests that have come in from the departments on raising those amounts. So I think it's, if I were to take an educated guess, was to identify that those departments are seeking an increase in the amount that has historically been there. Again, I think council they wanted me to bring that forward, but they said the article itself is workable either way.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to confuse people either way. If you have
Yeah.
two separate articles, you're going to confuse them. If you haven't one,
Yep.
I think it's fine the way it is. But we should be able to answer what it used to be.
Certainly, I'll make a note of that as well.
I don't know, you guys have anybody on that? Okay.
Well, I have no
Go ahead.
further comments on that point, but I noticed that in the article, it has the yellow, the highlighted ones, the ones that have changed.
That's correct.
Okay. And let's say Council on Aging, which I'm familiar with, social daycare, $175,000. Was there a reason for that or explanation? And is there anything there financially that we have to be concerned about, or is it we sort of indifferent to the limits?
No, so I don't get the backup detail as to the justification for the increase from the departments. And I guess the history of if that's a question that's been asked at town meeting, I would refer to those individual departments
Yeah.
to explain the operation and, the reasoning behind that.
I mean, there usually is a good reason.
Yeah.
Other than inflation, it's just,
Yeah, I would say the increases are generally minimal. Usually it's,
Yeah.
5 to 15,000, again, just cost of doing business.
And these are revolving fund accounts, so it's
That-
not
Yeah.
like
That's right.
increased taxation or anything.
yeah, it's not the budget.
Yeah. Okay, keep going.
All right, so with this year's warrant, I know in years past, the recommendations as well as the draft motions are included on the warrant. I don't know if I've mentioned, I believe I mentioned it previously. That hasn't been my experience. I've had that as a separate set aside. I did have a conversation with counsel on it. I think he had shared that, he would also be fine and comfortable with if it was something that was separate. I think, how I would look to do it is have it be something where it's a separate attachment to the warrant itself. It would allow us time to craft the motions ahead of town meeting. So if there was any last minute changes to the motions, there wouldn't be any inaccuracies on the warrant itself. Obviously, I want to be respectful of how it's been done, or if there's any preference from the board one way or the other. But
Well, I
again,
know we wanted printed motions because people get really confused with the motions on the floor, right?
Yes.
So what you're talking about is at town meeting, it would still be handout printed on paper that people
Correct.
would get. It's just that instead of being embedded in the warrant, it would be an appendix.
that's
Yeah,
correct.
It would be the way we do other handouts here on the table,
Yeah.
so they could physically pick it up and have it in their hands when they.
Yeah, I think as long as it's available, I think that makes a lot of sense, actually, rather than putting it in, because the warrant has 2 weeks, has to be posted 2 weeks ahead, right?
Correct.
So you're saying, so this would allow you a little more flexibility. You still have to print it, so you still need some time,
Correct.
but there's a little more flexibility on that.
That's correct. Or if there's any last minute changes, there wouldn't be any accuracies on the warrant. The way that, I've done it in the past is that separate handout would include the recommendations. It would include what the voting rules were for that particular article, if it was simple majority, 2/3, as well as the draft motion for consideration on there. And that could be in the back of the packet for the warrant.
I like that. So then, at our meeting before the town meeting, or maybe not right, I think we have a meeting right before town meeting, but maybe the meeting after the election, between the town meeting,
Yes.
we could vote on whether we're recommending or not recommending the different articles. Like,
Yeah.
when would we need that?
So before town meeting, obviously, that would still give us a few days to print it. That was actually gonna be my next item. I know that the finance committee has historically put their recommendations in. I don't know if the board also wanted to put its recommendations in as well.
In previous years, the previous moderator
Mm-hmm.
did not want to put ours in, but we did have a position on the articles in case we were asked.
Okay.
So, and I personally think we have a responsibility to make recommendations on the articles, but I think the previous moderator, I don't think wanted us to do that, to put it up printed.
Yeah, right. I remember discussing that myself with him, and I thought we should have a more preeminent role in a lot of these.
Yeah.
And the finance committee, a lot of times, yes, we recommend it, yes. It's almost like a broken record, until you get to, a controversial one. But we had a lot of knowledge of these and a different perspective in some respects, and I always thought that that our recommendation should be on there. But that might be a discussion for another year. I don't know if I'd recommend that change now. Because if I were going to recommend it, I'd say that we should have somebody from the select board assigned to each article be like the expert in that one to answer questions. So that the questions are not directed to, somebody else. A lot of questions you're going to get anyway,
Right.
by nature of your job.
I
But-
think that's a great idea.
I really second that. I
Yeah,
think-
I think that's a great idea, Dick. We can put that in the amendment, in the appendix that he's talking
Yeah,
about.
I don't know if we could pull that off. That may be too much of a change. And then we have to have time to do that.
Well, we've all been studying this warrant for months.
We have.
Right.
But I like that point because I think what happens at town meeting is the messaging kind of gets lost, right? Sometimes people end up getting more emotional in response to whether a turn article or a line item there where the messaging or whoever's explaining it may not be explaining it the correct way, and people get confused and may get emotional and vote against or for something that they thought would otherwise. So I think that's a great idea to have, not an expert, but someone that's at least well-versed in each of the articles to kind of present that. Makes sense.
Yeah, I think we should consider that. So not our next meeting, but the meeting after that. I think we should.
But for this town meeting, we're
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah,
Why
okay.
not?
If you think- Yeah, I mean, there's only so many articles, and a lot of them are cut and dried anyway.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm wondering, do we need to assign the ones that are cut and dried, or we just need the ones that require some
Some
deliberation?
explanation.
So,
The ones that are more complicated.
Yeah.
yeah, so I think for a recommendation, and again, my experience is I would make a summary in layman's terms, if you will, on the articles themselves. I think, for people who may not be watching these meetings, just the justification behind the recommendation, for why the board was looking to have this move forward. So if it was, that, it streamlines it, or, it's simplification. I'm just thinking about the one with regards to like the tax bills. Hey, this is a less administrative burden on our staff. That was kind of what the discussion was revolved around. That might provide additional context for the people, I guess, about, how it got here, how it got on the warrant. But whatever the board feels, and
But some of those town warrants are in place because it's a mandate from the state. So, people say, well, why are you doing that? Well, because in order for us to comply with what we need to do or change in state laws. So that actually may take some arguments off the table and move it along,
Yeah,
smoother.
I think we should really think about it. The only thing really is tricky is the timing, because the meeting that we have after the election is April 27, which might be too late to put in a written document.
so I think what I would work to do if the board wanted to go this direction is I would try to have that, I'll call it that final draft for the 6th. Obviously at that point, council would have weighed in on the remaining articles that need to be done. And at that meeting, perhaps recommendations could be made at the time it's approved. And then if there was continuing discussion about the assignment, maybe that could take place the 27th if the board was considering this as an option.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that, because I do think we know these articles better than most people.
Yeah.
And I think it's on us
Yeah.
to make a recommendation.
When people expect that, a lot of people have said to me, "Well, how come the select board doesn't weigh in on some of these? It's the finance committee all the time. You may not agree with that. We want your view. They're looking to
Yeah,
us,
yeah.
seriously.
No,
That's good.
great idea. Have you reached the bottom of your list yet?
We're very close. So, as I noted, we're going to have that final draft for approval at the next meeting so we can make the posting deadline. Are there any additions, that the board would like to see on the warrant just before we
I just have
finalize it?
One question before we talk about it. And this goes maybe to the next agenda item, so I don't want to jump out of order, but Article 27, we've discussed a couple of times, and that's with respect to the increasing of the penalties for overnight parking at
Yes.
town landings.
Yes.
So we do have a letter from Jeff Bull and the Landing Commission that they unanimously approved the increase in the fine, but it also says to be the same amount as the increased fine at town beaches. So I know I asked that before. Is the town landing, is that article also including beach violations or beach parking violations?
No, because how the fees are established, one is administrative through a policy.
Okay.
And for the Landing Commission, it's set here within the bylaw. So I think how the discussion's been with those two different groups is we're moving forward with the landing commission side, because obviously that requires a little more work, I would say, to get that approved. There's already been that discussion on the beach committee side that that's the number that they're going with. So
Okay,
they'll match.
Okay, because
Yeah.
and that's all I'm looking for
Yeah.
with respect to that, is that it's consistent. Now, town landings, and this is back to maybe an agenda item next time, is does that include the boat ramp that's half state, half town, or whatever that memorandum of understanding becomes? Will that be, can that 200 go to that as well? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, let me look at the article language as it's
Okay.
currently drafted.
Okay.
I know the state boat ramp is on my
Yeah.
TA report.
Yeah. Yes.
But I can also look at the language within that contract as
Okay.
well.
Because I think that's where there are a lot of big abuses there, as well as at Cherry and Webb. And the only other concern I've heard from people with that article is that, well, $200 is a lot of money. What if they made a mistake on their beach permit, or they didn't have it displayed? I mean, obviously, we are cognizant and flexible of a resident having an issue and coming to the town hall and addressing that issue, I think, right? So I think the biggest fear amongst Westport residents, oh, man, I forgot my ticket, or my hang tag wasn't on there, on the car, so am I going to get whacked with a $200 fine? And I've explained that you can come in, appeal it, it's flexible, and then no one's going to do it because, just out of that. I think, I'm fully supportive of it because I think there's a lot of abuses from people outside of Westport, going to Cherry and Webb and going to town landings and using those. So I'm fully supportive of that. I just want to make sure it's consistent and the fines are consistent across the board. So, thank you. That's it.
So that's Article 27 that you were
Yes.
talking about.
Yes.
Took me a while to find, because it doesn't say landing on it, it says overnight.
Overnight parking, and that's
Yeah.
what, and actually, to Madam Chair's point, it says overnight parking, but this is also a violation like during the day if there's a non-permitted person
Yeah,
parking there.
and I'll certainly review that, just, I guess with what the title of the article is.
Okay.
I think the conversation's evolved from the first
Yes.
time we've talked about
Yep.
this. I might take the overnight wording out
Yes.
of that, just again, for a little less
Makes sense.
confusion, but
Thank
great
you.
suggestion.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Anything else?
So I think at this point, Chris, and through the chair, we obviously have a situation here in town with respect to, absentees with sitting on various boards, and I think the time has come with respect to kind of addressing that. There's members that, we have a planning board that has a 5-person member board that may, in the future, be down to four members, and we're kind of constrained with what we can do with respect to, it's basically a recall, and somebody tried to start a recall in town and never really followed through with getting that recall done. So is there a town warrant or article that you could maybe research for us through town council with respect to unexcused absences, because I think the planning board will be in a tough position where in some instances they need full 4 people to pass something, and, having quorums, there's this situation here on the select board will probably, will fix itself at the next election. But I think we want to try to figure out what the town can do, because we have people in town that expect representation on various boards, especially the elected boards, that they don't currently have. So I think if there's something we can look at, I've done some research looking at other municipalities and towns within the Commonwealth that have various stipulations. Town of Everett had one with respect to if you've been convicted of a felony, you won't be able to serve in that elected position. I know anything we do at town meeting will have to get an AG sign off as well. But maybe just look and see if there's possibilities for us to, what we can do short of a recall, because a recall, as we know here, is difficult with respect to gaining the signatures and then getting 10% of the registered voters. And then it would be costly for the town anyway for a election outside of that. So just see if there are options.
So after we talked, I did talk to Chris yesterday, I guess it was yesterday, all the way to yesterday, about what are some of the options we should look at? Because we do have a recall provision in the town bylaws, and so if we wanted to amend that provision, so right now it's 10% of registered voters to trigger a recall, which is prohibitive. It's like 1,300 signatures. So if we were going to propose a change to the bylaw, we would need to get that on the warrant. But Chris also had some thoughts about there might be other triggers that don't require a bylaw. So I would like to explore what our options are, because we have a very narrow window. Like, we'd have to decide next meeting if we're going to put another article on the warrant. But that's where we need to know, what are the triggers that could possibly be pulled? Like, is it excessive absences? Is it conviction of a crime? I don't know what the other triggers might
And I
be.
think we should, if we want to do something now, we do that with elected officials. I think the appointed ones gets a little bit stickier.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could.
Because different committees have different functions. Some committees are strictly advisory. They do not have, and others have very specific powers that if you don't have a quorum, it affects your ability to run the business or run that part of town government, even if it's not an elected official.
So you're thinking maybe separate the idea of appointed versus elected?
Yeah, but, and within the appointed, there are some variations too.
Within appointed, I mean, since the select board does appointed, do we have recourse to take someone?
Yeah, we do.
So I talked to Chris about this a while ago, because there was a point years ago where I know I wanted to have someone removed from an appointed committee. And we were told at the time that they were appointed for a term, and that we were not able to, you couldn't get rid of someone off of a committee once they'd been appointed. And I'm thinking, and then your conversation with you didn't think that might necessarily be true.
No, my experience has been that appointments under the select board, they serve, just like me, right? I serve at the pleasure of the board. Regardless of if it's midterm or not. I would say communities, and it would be advisable if that's something the board wants to look at, is, what's the protocol? Obviously, you want to be even-handed in how you look at those. So attendance, conduct, working with other board members, but
I require all boards to have, take attendance and report attendance as part of their meetings. I mean, every board that I sit on,
yeah,
that's appointed in town, takes attendance and declares a quorum.
Right, so I think to that point is, in Dartmouth, we set up a policy where you have to be in attendance 75% of the time. And the trigger was during your reappointment when you came up, you look at the attendance history and that it began a conversation. It wasn't necessarily a action, it was just a, hey, how are things going? Are you, you're doing okay? Is this something you're still interested in? And so there was a real back and forth dialogue.
Well, the problem isn't really with the reappointment, right? Because if they're appointed until like June of '26, right, then this board could elect to appoint or not appoint them again.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot more gray area where we have made an appointment and it's supposed to be, through the 2027 and the person is abandoning the job, right? So like, what are the conditions you can remove that person? I think the elected one is the more urgent problem to address.
Yeah.
That's what my point was.
Yeah.
So I think, again, this is my opinion, I think the board has flexibility within its purview, its powers, to set that policy for appointed positions at any point. And on that note, I would just say the experience I had was usually it's a conversation with the chair of that committee, and they would bring that forward after working and trying to address the issue with any particular member. But to your point, yes, that would be something, additional conversation would be need to have for elected offices.
All right, so if you can do the research of whether we need a bylaw change or if there's, what the levers are that we could address this more urgent problem with the elected official. And then we'll have it ready for May.
And to the chair's point, what the AG will approve, right? I mean,
Right.
obviously, it has to go to the AG. And this could, and maybe there is a way that we don't need to go at town meeting, because the AG will probably take 3 to 6 months to approve, something like that. And our planning board will be stuck in a situation where they have 4 people, and if one's absent, they can't hold a meeting. So it puts them in a very difficult spot. So if there is a way that we can do it without, it makes it easier.
So what I'll do is I'll get an opinion from council, and I can share that with the board.
Okay.
And then, again, we can determine.
And then I would say if the
Next steps.
opinion is that there's some kind of bylaw recommendation, kind of have that pretty well crafted, because we're trying to get all that done by our next meeting.
So, may I ask, I'm not quite sure I'm following all of what's behind this, particularly as it respects the planning board. But we're talking about it because it's the item here about the annual town meeting warrant. We'd be considering another article addressing these
Yes.
issues. And we have to do that post haste, so, okay. I was wondering if this was a sidebar.
No, 'cause we're talking about, because if it needs to be a warrant article, that's how we brought it up. 'Cause I thought, so for example, one of the amendments we might want to make is to reduce the recall signatures required
Yes.
from 10% to 5%.
Yeah,
So that would be a really simple change of a bylaw that you'd put in a warrant article,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
So, and I don't really like adding, but we've also in the past called special meetings inside the town meeting, which is kind of messy too. It's easier to just open the warrant, but that's why I kind of went down the town meeting warrant, because the recall bylaw is in the bylaws now. So if we were going to change it, we'd have to do it at town meeting.
And if I may, is there something with the planning board that's going on here that
Yes,
causes
so
urgency?
one of the elected officials on the planning board has not been attending their meetings.
Yes.
And there are certain hearings that the planning board has where they have to have a supermajority vote. So you have to have 4, in that case, you'd have to have 4 yeses. It would have to be unanimous.
Oh, okay. Enough. Yep, got it.
Okay, so you have enough on that.
I
All
got
right,
it.
anything else about the warrant before we move on?
Thank you.
Okay. So you start talking about this. So the request from the Westport Landing Commission to increase the annual parking permit fee. So this is, the penalties were the ones that are in the warrant article, right? And then the permit fee,
I was just going to go from 30 to 40.
they want to increase it from
Yeah.
30 to 40.
It's just those 2 landings there. They're on the opposite side of the river. One is new.
Oh, the Hicksbridge
Hicksbridge
East
West.
and Hicksbridge West, okay.
Everyone was asking me what West was, and I'm like, I don't know, I think it's.
That little place
yeah,
where the
it's a
trees
little-
were. Yeah, okay. All right, anybody have any comments on that?
I'd make a motion to approve.
Oh, second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's 4 in favor and 1 absent. Phew, okay, town administrator report.
Yes, thank you. So, just on the town meeting process, in addition to the work that we'll do for the attachments for the town meeting warrant, also I've been having conversations with regards to programming and outreach and education on the warrant. So I know in years past, we've worked with Westport Community Television to put something together. I've contacted the moderator. Also had a conversation with our team at Community Television, starting to just think about the format for that for this year. So I'm hoping to have something for the month of April, so there's a few weeks where it's out for residents, so more information to follow. This was brought up a little bit earlier, but working in the background, we have been going back and forth with DCR on the Westport River Boat Launch MOA. So I had the opportunity to review it myself for the first time. I know there had been ongoing discussions. I sent a follow-up red line with some suggested changes. A lot of those were accepted. We're still working through some liability and ongoing maintenance language. So I'm hoping to have a draft for the board's consideration at the April 6th meeting.
I have a question on that?
Of course.
Can we move on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Which boat launch are we talking about?
This is, so if the board
The back
recalls, there's
alley.
Back Eddie?
The overflow lot across
Yeah.
from the back.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Back Eddie Baltimore.
Figured you didn't have your full geography yet.
Yes, I appreciate that. So for the website, so we were recently notified that there are new requirements with regards to ADA accessibility, for our digital platforms, which would require us to come into compliance in April 2027 for the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. We have been working with our third-party vendor, Revise. We went through our website over the last month, and our site is now aligned with the new standards. So we are ahead of schedule on that, but it's something that it is ongoing in terms of new content that we put on the website, making sure that we use alternative text, things of that nature. So again, hats off to the staff for getting that done.
May I have
Yeah,
a
go ahead.
question to this one too, Madam Chair? Well, so I'm on this committee. I don't recall it being discussed of late. I have a two-part question. One is, did the Commission on Disability make recommendations here or bring it to our attention? And the second part of that is, if they didn't, do they have questions that have been addressed, that need to be addressed? I'm just wondering what their role was here.
So this was something that we received notice on through the DOJ. So they had set requirements that, or more or less guidelines that we had to comply with regards to, the contrast of the website, broken links, alternative text, things of that nature. So we fulfilled that request. Happy to update the Commission on Disability on, what type of things that we had to get in compliance on. But we were able to satisfy those requests of us.
But were they even aware of it?
So-
Because it hasn't been discussed, but I've only been a member.
Yeah, so no, it has not. It hasn't come. We were able to, address it administratively, but I'm happy to brief the commission on what that requirement is and, what actions the town took.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just curious about that, because we've not heard about it, and I was wondering if they had any questions or concerns, or if this was older material.
Yeah, so it's more towns are becoming aware of it now. There's some communities based on the population that these new regulations actually take effect this year, this April. But because we're a smaller community, they gave us until next April to get it done. So
Okay, that's helpful, yeah.
it'll definitely become more prevalent, I guess, in the coming months when more communities have to address this issue.
Yeah, okay.
We're a little ahead of the curve on that, so.
Well, we can follow up on that as a separate item.
Sounds good. And then the last thing was, this past week, we were notified that our online permit system, Permit Eyes, has been acquired. So over the coming months, we did receive notice that they will be migrating us to a new permit system, Geo Permits. As of now, we don't have a set date, but they said this fall. The change comes at no cost. They did let us know that there are some additional features to the new system that we don't have, so there are some benefits. But as we get more information, we'll share that out. And obviously, that's a system that our departments are utilizing more, so, and the public's utilizing, so just want to get that out there earlier. That's it for me.
Thank
Oh,
you.
and I'm sorry, one more thing. I want to make a point of saying I was also able to attend the Easter extravaganza here yesterday. I was able to bring my son, who was in awe.
He was quite active.
Quite active, in awe of the size of the building and the Easter Bunny. So he had a great time. It's great to see a lot of families out there, so.
Yeah, I was remiss not to mention that at the beginning. The Recreation Department did a phenomenal job with that.
Yes, they did, so hats off to everyone involved with that.
Thank you. All right, so we have minutes of March 9.
Approve the minutes of March 9th?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's 4 in favor and 1 absent. Report on the bill warrant.
It was last week that I did this. It's for the week ending 3/20, and 2 million almost right on the nose, all in order, nothing controversial, everything done on time, and that's my report, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Committee reports or suggestions for future agenda discussion. Craig?
Okay, this may fall into both. Last week, both the Affordable Housing Trust and the Opioid Settlement Advisory Committees met. Opioid Settlement Advisory Committee, we covered the usual progress reports and things like that, but the big thing we did was we made some serious headway in terms of how to develop a spending plan for the committee. As you know, money is coming in as a result of opioid settlements with individual opioid manufacturers as well as individual drugstore chains. So cash flow is a little uneven in terms of how they pay and how we get the money. The good thing about it is because we didn't spend much money over the number of years, we have sort of a $300,000 balance. So I think some of the variances in the payment system coming to us can be smoothed out for a good portion of time. This is going to be into 1930-something, 2030, before the money presumably runs out. But we didn't talk to, one of the committee members came up with two spending models. One which we front end a little bit heavier spending because we're setting things up. The other one is to basically set up a anticipated revenue annually plus the balance that we've had for unexpended revenue so far, and to set up a spending plan based upon that. What that did was clarify our thinking with respect to RFPs and actually spending the money and how we're going to spend the money. So that's coming. Affordable Housing Trust, we talked about, this follows up on the fact that the Long-Term Building Committee has turned their charge back to us and is disbanded, I guess, or it's about to disband.
They can't disband, we have to disband.
Well, but that's, when we can reappoint them. The Affordable Housing Trust's concern was that housing affordability was knocked out of the charges to that committee. Using part of the old high school property and facilities for potential of affordable housing opportunities was never, has not been considered in recent years. And the committee has recommended that, we recommend, we just, to this board, we have not put it in writing, that that when we're looking at the RGB report, that we would be able to expand that contract to have them give some consideration to if there is possibilities for affordable housing using some portion of the property and/or some portion of the buildings. And that's the recommendation coming from the committee to us.
Okay, thank you.
And there is some, if it is a cost issue in terms of where we are with RGB, there is some, if there is a potential to do that, there is money in the Affordable Housing Trust budget for pre-development cost on identified projects.
So my thought was to take up discussion of how to attack the school building problem at some point after the election. I don't know if we want to do it before town meeting or after town meeting.
No, I think we wanted to put on the record
Yeah.
that the Affordable Housing Trust would like to have some contact with and ability to insert a housing option
Yeah.
into the plan as I just described it.
Yeah, okay.
Madam Chair, I know it's not a discussion point here, but I agree. I think there's seems to be movement with the old high school, and I think the fact that it's going to come back under here, the select board, I think we really need to take some action on this and find other ways. I think Chris had a meeting with someone today with respect to the old high school. I know, providing that option and the COA. So listen, I think now it's going to come under us. We need to really address this and maybe have, as Shauna said, a meeting that focuses on the policy, but it all comes down to messaging, everyone working in kind of conjunction on this, and I think there is a way to get there, so, you know, I want that building to be used, and I think a lot of people do. It's just, how do we get there? So let's look at all the possible options.
And the opportunity, when you begin to introduce housing, we're not talking about town departments having to do that. We're a town committee, but, you know, how does housing get developed? It's usually private developer, gets financial backers or resources, and they do that. So this is one of the few areas where we're bringing external resources to deal with the building in such a way that we're not having to spend an awful lot of money.
Yeah, I think that, and that's the proposal that you and Jim Whiten had brought before us
Yes.
before, to include that, right?
And
So-
the planning board is also pretty much,
Yeah.
has been very favorable towards
Yep.
this.
Yeah, if I look at the upcoming meeting calendar, so we have a meeting on April 27, and then we have, it says the 5th of May, but the 5th of May is,
I mean,
the 5th of May is town meeting, right?
Yes.
And then we don't have meeting until like June, so I think we probably need to take it up. We must have a meeting on the 4th.
some of the meeting in May, maybe next week.
Well, I got the calendar here.
Oh, well, maybe you could pull out your paper calendar, which would probably serve us well.
Proves us all well, because
Because, so we have a meeting on April 27
And May 11th.
and, May 11.
That would be a
yeah.
good one.
So either, I think, either April 27 or May 11, but then after May 11, we don't have anything till June 1. So we have kind of a
Yeah,
gap there,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the three, that
Yeah, it's a 3-week.
Memorial Day, I guess, is
Yeah.
throwing us off.
All right, so maybe we'll see we'll see what the 27th agenda is like, but I think we need to get moving on, do we want to go forward with the committee and recharge it? Do we want to go for this proposal, or an RFP, you know, like, I think we should at least talk about how we want to
Yep.
tackle the problem.
And then, Madam Chair, just on
Yeah.
that, because we did approve the $3,000 for Council of Aging to look at that kind of small, specific space in there. So maybe figure out where we are with respect to that. I know, and maybe that, you know, is somewhere in the time frame in the future where, again, I think getting in there and then figuring out even the longer-term plan would be great, so.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Anything else, Bill?
That's it.
All right, Dick?
Well, I feel like I'm busy, but I don't have much to show you in the way of results. But I do, I'm the liaison for Council on Aging, as you know, and the Landing Commission. But we discussed the Landing Commission and their recommendations and other things. I did meet with the Committee on Disabilities today at 4 o'clock, right before this meeting. I don't have anything to report there. They're working on a number of things, and actually they spent some time talking about the Saturday event with the candidates. Yes, there's other things going on, and one of which is including discussion about the Barry Beach, and you know about that. And I don't know if that involves you, Jake, but that's not my call. That's Chris's call. We'll be doing that. I was going to bring up the old high school, but I think you all took my thunder. And I do support a lot of what you're saying, and I think we do have to get on with it. People are asking me all the time, what's taking so long?
Yes.
And I'll save my comments for later, but yeah, I think that's a matter of great urgency. So, that's it.
Okay, so thank you for covering for me at the last meeting when I was unable to
It
attend.
was fun, actually. They're a well-behaved team here.
Oh, no. The chair at the time understands how you feel now with my constant input. I said, now you know how Shauna feels.
It was enlightening.
Did you bring him cookies or candy, though, this?
I don't think I did.
No, you didn't, but Carl took care of it.
I also missed the Climate and Resilience Committee, so maybe you have an update on that one.
I do.
I did not attend. I had a bike committee meeting last week. They're working towards Bike Month is coming up in May, and they're looking at how to distribute bikes around town. So we had the bike exchange at the transfer station. That was very successful, and we're going to continue doing that. And they're looking at some ideas for how to get more bike racks around the town. So that's a busy committee, actually. Gail Rodricks chairs that committee, and she's
She's cool.
Yep.
a powerhouse. It's not really a committee meeting, but I just want to call attention to the fact that Deb Weaver has been the director of the Westport River Watershed Alliance, and she's retiring, and so she is, I know I'm having coffee with her, I don't want to say her replacement, but the next director of the
Successor.
watershed. Her successor, there you go, the successor on Friday, so I know they're trying to make the rounds and meet everyone. We appreciate the partnership with Watershed Alliance. And then there has been a school building committee meeting scheduled, which I think is next week, but please check the agenda. But that committee went a long time without meeting, and now they're meeting again, so that's good. That's all from me.
As Shauna pointed out, the only thing I have is, I was at the Climate Resiliency Committee. We didn't have a full quorum to vote on stuff, but we were able to basically go through the report that we'll be getting finalized here in the next couple months. So we're working on that from a town standpoint. That was it.
Okay. Our public left. Do we have any comments or statements from the public?
Val?
There is no
Val?
public.
Val, do you have anything?
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
This is like a long meeting. I appreciate you guys because 8:15 is kind of a late meeting for us lately, but I think it's because all those public hearings got moved into the meeting, so.
Not as long as the last one. The last one was 2:36.
Oh. Dick ran a
Mr.
long
Brewer.
meeting.
We
Okay.
were digging in.
All right, so I don't think we have any unanticipated, anything within the 48 hour.
At 9 o'clock, I think, or just before 9 o'clock.
All right, I think we're done. Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's 4 in favor, 1 absent. Thank you, gentlemen.